So welcome everybody. We welcome today's 6 panellists who will make their presentations. And this will be followed by a panel discussion and your question and answer session. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand you over to Andy Ford for our opening address. Now, Andy started life as a mechanical engineer, and at the tender age of 30, he established the practice Fulcrum Consulting, where I had the greatest pleasure of working with him. And Fulcrum became famed for advanced integrated low energy building design and sustainable master planning. And that was long before the world had even woken up to its urgent need. Under Andy's leadership, Fulcrum proactively led the industry debate around sustainability. And this climate event series is testimony to Andy's long-held passion for research, innovation and knowledge transfer. So today, Andy, Professor of Building Systems Engineering at LSBU, will be giving us our opening address. Over to Andy.
Hello and welcome to the third of our Built Environment Climate Emergency Debate Series. When we decided it was time to tackle decarbonising heat in the built environment, the first thing that occurred to us that it had to be in the middle of winter, when we've got our heating on and being warm is front of mind. It just doesn't occur to most people until then. Of course, to all of us working in this sector, the issue never really goes away because we know heat is such an immediate and massive part of the task we have ahead of us. The UK has set a world-leading net zero carbon target, the first major economy to do so. That's massively ambitious, and zero by 2050 means the 6th carbon budget takes us to 78% by 2035. And how many homes are there in the UK? Well, there's 29 million, and we're currently building at around 100,000 per annum. Almost none are zero carbon, despite a 2013 government plan to make them also by 2016. As we've discussed in our previous climate emergency debates, all new build steel is not zero, so that number remains growing. But today we have to address the thermal performance of our existing stock and the legacy issue of poor building fabric and systems that fritter fossil fuel and pollute the atmosphere. Simply setting the target is no longer enough. To achieve net zero is a mammoth project management task. But right now, we can't even scope the project because we're still flip-flopping on policy and deciding which technologies are apt and workable and what the parameters and allowables are going to be within this framework. So it's not very clear at this stage what the critical path looks like. We need to get on with this and trial alternatives rapidly and at scale, then review them openly and decide on the path. The slide on the screen shows 2 rather influential graphs. In fact, the 2014 one has been shown a great deal more than the 2019 one. It shows on the grey line around the 50 mark at the bottom, that's our electricity demand. And the huge peaks in red are our gas demand. When more accurate modelling was done in 2019, thank goodness we see that the peaks dramatically reduce. It's still large, but they're nowhere near as big as those peaks appeared in the 2014 graph. One thing's certain, we mustn't make this a race of competitive interests. The outcome has to be based on what is right for the planet. But we cannot afford to get this wrong for future generations. Neither can we afford to dither. Speed is key. So we must galvanise into a state of action and fast. If one of the lessons we've learned out of this pandemic, it is that ignoring the science for too long makes it much, much harder to get a grip on things if they start slipping out of control. The speed at which we act and the technology choices we make now will echo down the generations. So in this spirit, I think the big questions we face today are, in our race to decarbonise the heat we use in our home, what replaces gas? What legacy issues are we looking to correct? What legacy are we looking to leave behind? And above all, how can we act on our conviction that to do what is right and not just follow those who lobby the hardest? This is a graph that I put up a long time ago, indeed 2008. And if you look on the picture in the top left-hand corner, you'll see it says now. That's 2008. That was the launch of the UK Green Building Council, where I was trying to get people to realise just how large the domestic heat sector was in terms of the challenge of decarbonising. So this was when we were trying to get to 80% by 2050, and it just stuck an S-curve on the monthly tons of CO2 that were being generated at the time, just to give us a feeling for how big the task was. And that big purple bit at the bottom is our homes, the things we all live in. And then we launched the Zero Carbon Hub, and they were in our office for much of the time when there was this big ambitious plan to get to zero carbon homes by 2016, new build by 2016. So as a sector, we need to shape our future legacy before others shape it for us. Construction and property is made up of huge numbers of very small entities, and we're not very good at speaking together and clearly about what we know about. We need to get the consumers with us and show them what a green future and what a green house of the future looks like. I wonder how many consumers are aware that we have for 20 years known how to build comfortable homes that require trivial amounts of heating, that electricity is the greenest fuel of all now, that an electric future awaits, that they've got a heat pump in their kitchen already, which never needs servicing, it's just cooling their milk, not heating their rooms. The gas emits carbon and is dirtier than our grid electricity in 2021. That the gas boiler in the home won't integrate with anything. But if we get this transition right, a wonderful integrated lean electric system awaits with car, home, place and planet optimizing energy use. How do we bring them with us on this journey of change? We must not take our eye off the ball. We must learn to effectively engage with policymakers. There's been a change. We are now aiming for zero by 2050 in the UK. That means that the graph I put up just now has squeezed. Unfortunately, the moment now hasn't changed very much. We haven't really begun that slope the way we need to. The energy white paper powering our net zero future is disconcertingly vague and uncertain when it comes to heat. We cannot let it down to be the may the best man win, not without total transparency, nor the loudest or the ones with the deepest pockets and the best PR campaigns, because we're going to pay a heavy, heavy price for that. Pippa has mentioned my background at the beginning, and I have personal experience of the politics of all this. We worked very hard and with huge passion and rigour on the Zero Carbon Hub homes policy in the early 2000s with the Zero Carbon Hub. Enacting the policy declared by Labour that by 2016 all homes will be zero carbon, which we totally believed. We set about defining what zero carbon was and how it would be achieved, and we came within a hair's breadth of that becoming ratified into policy. Huge swathes of the industry had engaged and were prepared for it. Then, suddenly, a matter of months before the entire body of work was overturned and scrapped. To date, that change is estimated to have cost around £2 billion, which has gone to the carbon-intensive energy industry. A 1% uplift in build cost was deemed too expensive by house builders, one of whom admitted to the parliamentary committee appointed in 2019 to investigate that scrapping decision that the same house builder estimated that typically they made 30% profit and they paid their board 605 million in bonuses. Yet the cost of zero carbon in the same year would have cost them a tenth of that, 65 million. It's not they couldn't afford it, they just didn't want to afford it. In England alone, over 800,000 homes have been built since that fateful decision. 800 homes that now add to the carbon crisis we're facing. It should have been the biggest scandal of our times, but it was not, because the public don't know their homes are guzzling gas and belching out carbon. They don't know a decision was made at the expense of the planet to line already lined pockets, so there wasn't an outcry. We cannot let this sort of thing happen when it comes to heat. Time to make a lot of noise. We do know what we're doing in our construction and property industry, and insist on open decision making and clarity about lobbying by incumbents. So how do we, the built environment sector, ensure that the bell tolls on the carbon economy when we plan and create policy to reach net zero? Let's go over to our panel now to hear, how do we take the carbon out of heat? Thank you.